Hello, everyone. We have another story from Edgar Allan Poe that was already published in my book, Macabre, Short Stories and Poems from the Other Side. And this one is about a very, very popular topic regarding Jack the Ripper. Now, Jack the Ripper it's extremely controversial. It's been many, many years that people have been trying to figure out who actually had committed all of these crimes. And usually, in most cases of serial killers, you find that they probably did more than what people found out about. And so it's sort of an endless or a dark pit. You just keep digging and digging, and you see that there's just so many different things that they got into. And when they do this, it's usually a circle of a location, a circle of friends, a group of people that usually are impacted by this whole spree that they go on. And like most serial killers, they want people to know who they are. It became such a famous story that people were, pretty much claiming to be the Ripper, and many were accused of being the Ripper because it seems like, they were, I don't know if they were copycat crimes or just people that were committing murder for different reasons. And so they're identified in that way. And if someone happened to be even living in the area where it was happening and had access to some of these locations, like I did see someone talk about the likelihood of an individual being able to commit these crimes and get away from it, go home, and also the type of profession that they should have in order to do the type of murder that was committed, I guess hinting that, they should have like a medical knowledge of some sort. But this was never anything that I tried to prove. I always felt like, these stories are pretty interesting, but I just saw that I was doing my work. And ironically, I had 2 private sessions that brought me to this story, and then I understood exactly who I was looking at. And I will be honest with you, it was shocking, and I got quite upset. Some of the things, actually, I had to pull out of the one incident regarding a child, and the other one I was able to see and observe what the story was about. So I'm going to have you listen to the story, and then I will share with you who I believe was Jack the Ripper and why I believe that, and also a little bit more in depth of what I did see. So here's the story now.
Jack the Ripper. Would you believe it if I told you it was true, that Jack the Ripper still lives amongst you? A tall black hat, a gentleman's walk, a dignified look, and sophisticated talk. He hid so well that no one could tell who he was and what type from the darkest hell. It all began when I met this man who was in spirit and had a message for his sister. She was distraught to an extent over her loss, to see this man die so many years too soon. A gentle soul, a lover of all good, he stood by her in spirit and helped her in every way he could. Still, secrets hide on the Akashic Records side, so she came to learn more of her many past lives before. She said in a quivering voice of confusion, "I know something happened in my past life where I was abused, It feels like a rape or a horrible incident. Can you see into the past to know if this is fact or illusion? I opened the window to peer into her lives, so many to behold, so many life lessons inside. Yet the question spun the wheel around, and there before me was a lifetime in England during the 1800s. There I saw her as a little English boy, carrying a box with a brown paper wrapper and a bow on top. He walked along a cobblestone neighborhood after going to the butcher for Sunday dinner. The streets were quiet and all the market stores were closed. The echoes of his footsteps were all he could hear while he adjusted his disheveled clothes. Then in a moment, a click and a clack. A man was approaching, all dressed in black. He wore a top hat and gentleman's attire, and walked with a cane to impress his curious onlookers. The sound began to echo, but in a muted sound of decay. Why were the streets so vacant in such a disturbing way? The little boy, not much older than 7 years, began to get nervous as this man's wickedness gave him chills from his head to his toes. A piercing glare, an inhumane stare, a sordid vision of hell mixed in his veneer. The man approached the young boy with his cane and blocked him from running home or back from where he came. It wasn't the box filled with meat that he was interested in. It was the young boy and his wicked perversion he sought to revel in. The boy was defiled that day, then taken to his grave in the most despicable way. The scene ended. A quietness revealed the history of acts of dark deeds. The question was answered, but it still didn't bring much relief. Another reading. A lifetime begins. A man this time trying to work through his karmic sin. He is unhappy by a divorce and the way his life took its course. There were incidents of his sorrow that led to deep remorse. It didn't happen right away. The readings reveal other lifetimes along the way. Then there he was, a woman instead. He wore a white bonnet with curly hair that was strawberry red. A similar smile, even his eyes looked the same. She appeared to be happy while she planted flowers by her garden gate. This was a lovely garden home and many flowers to sell. She cut off a bunch or two and went to the marketplace with her friend. It was a pleasant scene to behold. A seemingly innocent English woman with her pleasant English garden. Then the scene skipped a beat, and there stood a man upright and neat. He wore the classic black top hat, with black clothing and black shoes on his feet. I didn't grow suspicious, since I knew it was common for a gentleman to wear a tall black hat and jacket during this period of time. Then it happened with his glance, as I was frozen in my trance. My blood grew cold and I recognized that stare. He was sizing her up right there. Where did I see such wickedness in one's eyes? Is it possible that this is something that I had contrived? Now I remember. This was the same man who was the molester. Who could this person be, committing such horrible crimes in history? Then the master said in a voice, "This man was Jack the Ripper as you supposed. He was driven to madness when he discovered his wife had a lover. He was very controlling, possessive, and conniving. He was able to conceal all his wickedness as he hid his path so carefully. So many others stood up to claim to be him. The darkness spread throughout England, and an unusual confusion set in. One may ask, what was the motive? Why kill prostitutes if he was jealous? They thought that he was self-righteous and wanted to root out all that was contrived in this. The thought was that his wife had another lover, yet she was of the similar gender. A woman had stolen her heart, and she may have hinted to her husband that her lover was of a questionable profession. In all reality, she was of a wealthy connection, a neighborhood woman who had come close to befriend her. Brown-haired and demure, she was married to a duke or an earl. Then the killing spree went on until all these serial deaths had come around. Why did this karma remain with Jack the Ripper's wife? It was because she did something else that wasn't right. She poisoned her husband and did away with him through her own wickedness. She could see he was sinister and was tired of his controlling behavior. She got away with it all because the authorities had agreed that there wasn't enough evidence to support this theory. Still, the karmic wheel continued to spin, and this man in the reading, who was once the wife of Jack the Ripper, was in this present lifetime having an affair with a woman who was once the Ripper. This time they both lived in America. They were karmically brought together and were daytime lovers at the office. They hid their relationship from his wife and her husband. She was in pain, still working through her karmic remains. The man was searching for relief from this karmic blame. Yet there is mercy for all those who are searching. Even Jack the Ripper can find peace where sin had been lurching. There were still problems with the relationship of both. Neither one could find peace or happiness beyond. The man saw the light and received his insight. Though he couldn't change the past, he could now redirect his life. The karmic wheel continues to spin, but in this lifetime he has cleared his sin and has learned the important lesson of the act of revenge. We remain connected to many souls we have offended. It can trace back to a problem from the past. So let go of your anger. It is very likely that the stranger who has caused you much trouble may have been your victim and is here to help you learn your lessons.
Okay, so let me just review a bit of what you heard. The story is a little complicating. Even though Poe helped me to put it together and guided me on the right words to say, it sort of just flowed. But even still, you're looking at, multi situations that helped me to gather my information. It begins with this woman who came to me. She had a brother who had passed over, and she was asking me as a medium if I could communicate with her brother, and which I did. In that point, we started to look at some other problems that she had as I dedicated the hour to give her, that time to ask whatever she wanted. And during that time, she confessed to me that she had a horrible time feeling like she was had been raped in her life, or, severely molested, or something bad had happened to her. And she said, for the life of me, I can't recall any incident, any time in my life. I felt like it might have something to do with my childhood, but I have no memory of it. can you look and see if there's anything maybe even in a past life or something that I can't see? And so as she was saying that, I began to look in her Akashic records, and as the scene just opened up. I could see cobblestone walkway. It looked like a city. I knew immediately it was England, or at least London, from pictures that I had seen. And then I started looking around in the buildings. I could see that it was pretty early in the morning, very early. And I saw this little boy who had gone to the butcher. It was some kind of, I don't know, it was a holiday or some type of event where the little boy was sent out to go to the butcher and get this piece of meat that they were going to cook for dinner, for a special dinner of some sort. And they wrapped it in what looked like, I don't know if it was brown, some kind of brown paper. And so then they placed it in a box. And when he was traveling home on foot, just walking, you can hear him walking. And all of this, it was very vivid to me. And then I heard a man walking. He had a cane. And I was wondering, I said, what is going on here? And he walked up to the boy and he put the cane out and blocked him. And I thought he was going to take the food from him. And instead, he, which this is the hard part, he actually violated the boy. And the boy had to have probably been about 7 years old or so. I was so horrified, I started crying. I pulled out of the vision. It was horrifying. I said, who in the world was that? I said, that is a horrible situation. And of course, the woman I was doing the session for, she looked at me like, what in the world's wrong with you? And I said, I just can't look anymore. I said, this is something that I really don't want to see. And so she left a little distraught. I was distraught. I'd never heard from her again after that. And I realized that that was Jack the Ripper. And I said, the energy I felt was really, really dark, very dark. So a few years go by, and this man comes to me, and he had this woman that was in the office with him, that she was married. He was having an affair with her. And so, but he wasn't very serious with her. He just, it was kind of convenience, sort of friendship, but they really couldn't get past anything more than that. And she wasn't willing to leave her husband for him, and he wasn't interested in being serious with her. I think they were both married. They both had this affair. And so I think he had asked me about it. So here again, I go into the Akashic Records. I'm looking, and I see this woman, and she's, curly strawberry blonde hair. She's picking flowers. Looks like she was taking something to the market. I saw a picket fence. I saw what looked like, that kind of cottage-looking home, and a little bit of a garden, not a large space, a small space. And then I see this man walk up with a tall black hat, and I'm thinking, well, this is interesting. He had, it looked like striped, slightly, some kind of striping on the pants. The jacket was long, and he had a mustache. And it was the way he looked at her that I started to get triggered again. I said, I recognize that. And then I realized that this was Jack the Ripper again, only this is his wife. And then I started to see that there was some issues going on regarding their trust and cheating and so forth. So there was a lot of anger. He had a lot of anger. She also was resentful. And I actually think she had known about his infidelity, and that she said something to him about being in an affair with somebody. And what it looked like in the story, and I know that people, I don't know if people are going to question what I'm saying right now, but that she actually commented that she was herself interested in a female, and that she was, of question, kind of a prostitute type. And, I don't know, she's rubbing it in his face. It seems like there was some kind of resentment and sarcasm. And so anyhow, it turned out that she did have a female lover. It's history says, well, I'll get into that, but history says she had a male lover. Anyhow, this is probably something that they wouldn't talk about. So, anyhow, as the story, goes on, I thought, well, let me take a little, deeper look. And now this man's looking at me like, all right, so you're saying that I was this woman that was married to Jack the Ripper. And my feeling is that woman that he was in a relationship in his office was actually the Ripper. And, she was very cold and calculating. She didn't really care about anyone. But now that I'm looking at it, I'm not 100% sure. It could be the entity that was related to Jack the Ripper that might have been influencing her at that time that made me feel that way. And so that can happen too. Sometimes it's not the soul incarnating, but actually, these astral beings can be very tricky. And so you think that they're a resident in the body permanently, but actually they just might be moving through someone at the time. And as I said, I've learned quite a bit since then. So what happens is that she becomes very, very unhappy with him and decides to kill him. And I see her putting poison in his glass. And I thought it was some kind of arsenic or something. And she kills him. So I said, all right, now this is a really weird story. And I don't know, I needed to validate what I was looking at. And I said, well, how am I going to figure out if what I'm looking at is true? So I decided to do a search on all of those that were accused of being Jack the Ripper. And then I said, now, if what I just saw is true, then the real Jack the Ripper would have been murdered by his wife through arsenic. And so I ended up finding this one individual by the name of James Maybrick. So I started looking at the story of James Maybrick. And it seemed to match everything that I saw. She did have a lover. He was gone part of the time and it was having affairs. He, definitely was around the area and was poisoned by arsenic by his wife, who she stood in trial but did not get convicted. Maybe because they kind of knew there was something wrong there. So then I discovered also that there was a diary that he had. It doesn't say that it's a document. So I looked, this is in Wikipedia. And according to James Maybrick in the story of Jack the Ripper diary, in 1992, a document presented as James Maybrick's diary surfaced, which claimed that he was Jack the Ripper. The diary's author does not mention his own name, but offers enough hints and references consistent with Maybrick's established life and habits that it is obvious to readers are expected to believe it is him. The author of the document details alleged actions and crimes over a period of several months, and taking credit for slaying the 5 victims, most commonly credited to Jack the Ripper, as well as for 2 other murders which have to date not been historically identified. And that's what I'm talking about, is serial killers usually have a record of what they, I mean, not all of them, but it seems to be a trend. It's almost like a trophy to them. This is the type of mentality they have. And I guess you'd have to go deeper into the psychology of that. But so anyhow, there's another thing that he had too. I guess they checked the ink, and there were some inconsistencies about what people believed. But I don't know if some of the findings were possibly tainted. And then there was, of course, another thing. I believe it was a watch that he had, a pocket watch. And within the pocket watch cover, it says, "I am Jack." And then he has initials of the 5 victims. And so, and then they also reviewed that. And according to one gentleman, Stephen Turgus of the Corrosion and Protection Center at the University of Manchester Institute of Science and Technology, using an electron microscope. He, went over everything and was kind of convinced that this was authentic, but I think there was some question that he had. He probably didn't want to come right out and say what he thought, but there was another one that was brought in, a Dr. Wild, and he said, provided that the watch has remained in a normal environment, it would seem likely that the engravings were at least several tens of years age. In my opinion, it is unlikely that anyone would have sufficient expertise to implant aged brass particles into the base of the engravings. So I don't know why that the idea of James Maybrick being Jack the Ripper was thrown out, and I don't feel that I'm an expert in the area of studying writing and some of these the document, and all I know is that I had some information that was clearly information that I wouldn't know other than the fact that I saw it, that I had been able to peek into the history of time and see what had transpired. And like I said, it's a very controversial topic. This is what I believe. Also, the fact that this whole karmic thing comes around, it's one of those things that just sort of appears, it's there, it exists. When we have a conflict with people, we have to somehow or another work through it. And but it's easy to resolve once you understand what the problem is. So I don't believe in the universe is here to punish anyone, but rather to reveal and to help us to understand and learn different things. And so, and there it is. So here's my story, with the help of Edgar Allan Poe and with the help of my many years of working with people. This is 2 incidences where I had seen this. Another thing too, which people may have a problem with, is that I clearly saw him as a pedophile. So that too brings in another issue, is why I said that he was quite dark, not anyone that you would want to take lightly. And my belief now, in this current time, I would say it's an astral being of a very nefarious type, and which would lend to the idea of a time traveler or an entity that appears throughout time and has repeated patterns, murdering and harming humanity in some way or another. So thank you for listening, and please share your thoughts and ideas below.